Okay, Keith with Barn Hill Bee Barn in my redneck drying room and extraction room and uncapping room. I'm going to use all of it because I got 38% humidity, which keeps the honey as dry as possible. All of my tools are clean and dried to make sure I don't introduce any additional moisture. And I'm going to show you how I do this in stages because it's a very small room and the camera doesn't follow me, so I have to reposition the camera for every stage to do this. So I'll be right back and I'll show you how the uncapping is going to proceed, and then I'm going to do some uncapping. Okay, my uncapping rig, real high tech. I have a big plastic tub. I have a board stretched across it that actually perfect cut. It latched in for the lid locks, which is good. And I put a single wood screw through the center. What that does is you set the end of your board down on there, your frame down on there, and it allows you to spin your board around and cut it, uncap it, without needing three hands to do it. So let's lower this down. And I've got a food grade bucket sitting here. As soon as I get one uncapped, I can drop it down in that food grade bucket, and then I'll be ready to go to the extractor. Now, last year I used a bread knife to do this. It worked good, but it was just a little bit short. So this year I bought a real uncapping knife, and we're going to see how well that goes. So we set that board down on the screw so it's pretty stable, and you never want to cut towards your hand because when it slips, you're going to lose body skin. So we just carefully running that knife along the edge of the board, saw it back nice and light. And as you can see, this is why you need an uncapping tank, because all the honey that runs out when you uncap it, you don't want to lose that. I try not to shave the board too awful much when you're uncapping, so you don't have, you're going to strain it, so you don't have to be real worried about it. But the less wood you got in your honey, the better, the easier it's going to be to strain. All right, then we'll take this and turn it over, set it back on my screw, and I'm going to carefully finish taking the cappings off. Okay, now you can see that side's good, and now you look at this side and you see there's a little issue. A lot of this is not above the board, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut even with the board everything that will come off. And as you can see on this side, it didn't take off a lot. So I've ordered one of the rolling pins that punctures all the frames, but I got a meat tenderizer here that all you have to do is scrape down and you just basically shred all the cappings. Now when you do this, of course, it takes them longer to build the frame back out, but next year when they build it out, it'll be flush or above the boards. So you want to make sure that as best you can, you've got all the cappings. Torn up. You don't want to just do it this real deep and destroy all the comb, but you don't want to have to come back 3 or 4 times and do this. All right, all my tools I lay back down in there. And then since this frame is done, my bucket is real close by so nothing drips in the floor. Put it down in my bucket, and I do my other frames. Now, because I have hive beetles, you don't usually see hive beetles in the honey frames, but you will. And I saw one climb out. So you want to try to kill him. That's good. And get rid of him. We don't want him in the honey. He'll get strained out, but we don't want him to live, which is the most important. All right, so I'm going to do these others, and we'll move on to extracting. Okay, I've got my first 3 frames ready to go into the extractor, and I'm going to show you how they go in there, since it only holds 3 frames. Alrighty. Basically, you set them down. Centered as possible. Now it'll take shallows, mediums, or deeps. That's why I bought this one, because it holds 3 of any one of the above. So you just put them in facing the same direction so that the load is the same. Put it in as centered as you can get it. And check your honey gate before you even load your frames, because you don't want it to lose any of that precious cargo. Okay, so it is definitely recommended that you put your covers on so that you don't get your fingers in the way, and you don't want to sling out any of that honey either. They're clear plastic covers, so they won't be an issue. And then I make sure I would put a bucket under the gate. Even though you've checked it, make sure there's a bucket under there anyway. And then we just slowly start cranking it up to speed. Now mine is not fastened down at all. I was going to try it this way first. You can see I've got them spinning pretty good, and it's not too bad. I do want to fasten it to the floor though. This would be giving me a lot more leverage to crank it up much faster. So once you've spun these out for a few minutes, then you take the frames out, turn them back around the other way so the other side is facing out, and you do the same process. And we'll be back with you in a minute. All right, there's a couple of things you got to be careful of when you're doing this. One, you need to have a clean bucket under the gate, and after you start running your extractor, you need to open your gate up and let the honey run through your strainer, because if you let the honey build up in the bottom of the tank until it hits the bottom of the basket, then you're going to start introducing a lot of air into your honey. And you don't want that because it takes days or weeks for all those little bubbles to come out. So get your clean bucket with your strainer set up under the gate and start cranking the handle. You may want to flip them over a couple of times and run them 10-15 minutes. It's not really that hard, even by hand. And then you'll have big majority of your honey out of your frames. Now, if you have problems with the weight, you can't get the load balance, just try moving the frames around to get it as balanced as you can so you can run it as fast as possible. All right, and here we go. My first honey from my girls producing in my backyard. Ain't that lovely stuff? Now I've got a double screen filter here that fits on top of the bucket. And it'll double filter it, and then it'll be down in the bucket. And now that I've got that set up, I can continue on extracting, just keeping an eye on my filter there to make sure it doesn't run over the top. This stuff is just barely amber, it's almost clear, and it tastes incredible. Alright, I got those spun out. I've got another clean bucket. They're light as a feather now. The extraction did a real good job. It left my comb intact except where I had to scrape it. It's just slightly damaged. They can repair that pretty quick. Take those empty frames and put them in another clean bucket. There's my old dark frame. It's light now. It's very well extracted. You can tell, I mean, it's just light as it can be now. It's an empty frame. So it didn't take long. I flipped them twice, but after the first time, they were pretty much free of honey. But I did it again on the other side just to be safe. This is some brand new comb, and you can see where it separated from the plastic background a little bit on this frame. The other new frame, just like it, didn't have a bit of trouble with it. So it was just very, very fine brand new comb, and it just separated from the plastic backing when I cut it. It was actually come apart, did that when I cut it with a knife. I was cutting the caps. So we got quite a bit of honey. I'm not even going to guess how much, but it's just the first 3 frames, so I'm going to continue on to do the rest. Alright, here we are. About 3 hours later. I'll check and edit it later. 10 frames of honey extracted. Approximately 4.5 gallons of honey out of 10 frames. This is my first year's gathering of honey, so it's not bad. I do believe that in late August I'll probably have some more. I do have some honey supers, at least 2 honey supers that are mostly full, not capped. After measuring the water percentage on these that were uncapped, they were at 17 and a half. That's fine. I mean, it's well under the 18% that you really need. So I'm really happy. Got a lot of cappings that I can melt down so my wife can be happy and make some candles and stuff. Bit of cleanup to do. As you can tell, it's a 3-frame extractor. I had 10 frames. So I had to do a little juggling at the end to get the last frame extracted, but just slowly flip it back and forth. And it wasn't too bad. Overall, the Vevor performed great. I don't have a problem with it. Tilting it got all but maybe a half cup, maybe a third cup of honey left in the bottom of it. And once I get a scraper, I can get quite a bit, get some more out of it then. I'll still maybe 4.5 gallons of honey. This stuff is awesome. I'm happy with my girls' work. So I'm going to clean up and we'll see you next time.